all the cedar that I just pulled out here, we're gonna go through it and use probably a lot of it for the house sides. So this is all offcuts from the planking stock, which means a lot of it is really nice and straight and clear. As you can see, I just dug it all out of the firewood pile. And this is probably enough for one of the sides of the house, maybe even more. So I know we got a ton of cedar in the rack there, but I'm a big proponent of waste not, want not. And if we can use this stuff for the boat as opposed to just cutting up the firewood, I'm all about taking the 20 minutes to dig through the pile. Everything that's left over there is really crummy cedar, it's too small, and just a lot of oak and locust, and that is all gonna get cut up for firewood. This stuff will all get slated for the boat. So traditionally, the house sides on a boat like Arabella would be built out of 4 big planks, one for either side, one for the front and back, and they'd be about 12 inches tall or so, so about a foot. And one of the issues with those big timbers like that, especially up on deck where they're gonna get wet and then they're gonna dry and they're gonna get wet and they're gonna dry and they're gonna be hot and they're gonna be cold, is that timber moves. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it to join them together, but kind of no matter what you do, you have these big timbers up on deck that are exposed that like to move and which like to eventually lead towards leaks. So we're gonna really break with tradition here and we're gonna strip build the house sides. And that's gonna make it just one big monocore structure. We're gonna do it out of the cedar, which is gonna be lighter than the pine that Acorn specified. And that's gonna help make up some of the weight from down below by adding the oak planks. And since this is dramatically above the water line, shedding just even a handful of pounds there is gonna make a really big difference. So the cedar will be a bit lighter. It's really easy to work with, especially when we're ripping it into strips and putting them in straight lines. And we've got a whole pile of ring shank nails, thank you very much Jamestown Distributors, and a bunch of epoxy from Total Boat. And the plan is just to strip build those house sides, and that'll be one big feature. So basically we'll lay down one of these strips and we'll put a bead of epoxy on it, put another strip down, put a bunch of bronze ring shank nails into it, and build it up that way. So every layer will be nailed to the one below it, as well as glued. And then that whole thing will more than likely get sheathed in either fiberglass or Denel. Haven't quite got that far yet. We'll get the thing built first. And then we'll do the same thing, I think, for the cockpit. And we'll do the same thing for the house top. And we'll make all of those just their own structures that if they ever needed being replaced, you wouldn't really do much to replace a section of it. You would just take the house sides off and build new house sides, or throw the cockpit out and make new cockpit. As opposed to like the hull where you would take a plank off and replace the plank. So I think it'll shed some weight. It's a really easy construction method. It's all gonna be painted anyways. So to me, it just kind of makes the most sense.
Remember Steve in the last couple of videos talking about how slow it is getting these nuts on. You gotta like crank them for a while. I'm finding the same thing. But all of these will get trimmed down to the correct length at some point. But right now they need to be bolted in.
So now that the deck structure is bolted in and we have that all secured, or at least the pieces that we have now, I can start working on installing these tie rods that Steve made. We just have the 2 right now, but as you can see, we're gonna have short beams going all the way down this side and all the way down this side. So what the tie rods do is they keep the carlin here tight up against these short beams. And the reason we do this is because the little screw that's going into the end grain into the short beam here is obviously not going to be strong enough to withstand all those forces. Keep in mind that we're going to have the deck on here, and then the deck gets caulked, and when you caulk the deck, there's a lot of spreading pressure, so that could push this out and separate those. So the tie rods go in right next to all the short beams to keep those all tightened together. So what we're going to do here is these are going to go right next to the little short beams. I'm going to figure out whatever this angle is coming off the shelf, and we're going to drill a hole right through the carlin here, and this is going to thread right through here. There's going to be a nut over here that'll keep it on, and then here on the plate you can see that there are 2 holes which are going to get bolted, and then 1 screw in the back. So this is going to go all the way through the shelf and basically clamp this in here, which is going to keep the rod from moving.
While Alex gets the tie rods installed and works on getting the knees installed, I'm jumping ahead and doing all of the material prep. So in like 2 weeks, I'm gonna disappear for like 3 or 4 videos and go take some time off and go disappear in the woods for a bit. And Alex is gonna stay here like I did this past summer and run the show and get everything done. So we're making sure that he is up to speed with kind of the new trips and techniques and all the fun stuff that we're doing right now. So by having him install the tie rods and work on the knees, install the short beams, he's going to kind of get up to speed with what we've been working on and what he needs to continue on the deck structure. And I'm just going to be working on prepping materials and feeding it to him. And if I get ahead of him and get all the materials prepped, then I'm going to jump in right alongside him and continue fastening and making short beams and getting all that done. So what we're really trying to do is get buttoned up around the house so that we can build the house sides while it's still warm enough to do some epoxy work. And then after that, we can start diving into all sorts of different things, which will be really fun. But before we can put the house on, we need to install all the short beams. So we need 22 of these. So I made a short little pattern so I don't have to be dealing with the real long one. And I'm going to start here with our locust offcut pile, get what I can out of here, and then go outside in the rain, fun, and open up some tarps out there and go see what I can find. So these short beams are a great use for some of the scraps and the offcuts we have. And with 22 of them, it's gonna take a goodly bit of material. So when I get one of these that's still rough cut and hasn't been planed down to thickness, I'm just hitting it with the lumber crayon, tracing it out real roughly. I'll lop it down to the size of the bandsaw, thickness it, and then trace it out for the final cut with the pencil. And any of these that are already planed down to size, I'm carefully tracing them out with the pencil, and they'll just go straight to the bandsaw and get cut out, and they can go to sand and finish. Will that reach from the carlin to the shelf at either the stem or the stern? Oh yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Whole bunch of locusts for short beams. Some are cut out, some got to finish get cutting out. And it's still not quite enough. I got a few more to make.
All right, now that we got it threaded, I'm just gonna take off some of the tarnish here with this. There's also some printed stuff on these rods that we don't really need to see. These aren't gonna be shown all that much in the boat anyways, but it'd be nice to start a little bit fresh and have it all tarnished the same. You won't even see this plate part once everything's installed because the deck's gonna be like a ½ inch above it. Just wanna get some stuff off of here so that whatever you do see of the rod in the boat is gonna look, I don't know, a little nicer.
Did you say 14 feet?
14 feet, yeah.
That one might be. Oh, that one's 8.6.
Yeah.
They're all the same thickness, right?
Yep. Flip it.
You can flip it. Which way you want to go? Is there much bend to a carlin?
No, they're straight.
You're in really good territory here.
Yeah. So I can kind of do something like that.
Yeah.
And then can we just stand it back on edge?
Yeah.
Just before we commit to cut anything, I just want to... And that side's our better edge too. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna go grab the chalk line and we'll just snap some rough lines and then I think we can plane it down and then make some nicer lines and cut it out on the bandsaw.
Sure. I see only one mark. One's right out by the bark. There you go. That's good.
we've got these bolted into the shelf right here. Looking pretty good. I haven't tightened them up all the way, but that's not bad. So all I need to do now is drill in for the screws back here, which will go through the shelf and then through the clamp leaf with a 4-inch screw. One of these guys. So that's gonna go right in there. And people have been worrying about the shear strength in here. There's really no worries about that. And about shortening them and just putting them on the beams. Would have been nice, we could have done that and saved maybe a little bit of money, but it really wouldn't have been all that much money. And now we're gonna have all of these rods that are running like this through Arabella, and these are gonna be perfect points to clip things in, to hang things off of. I think they're gonna be really, really handy. So that's part of the reason that we made them the way that we did as well. So all of these points that are coming out over here are actually gonna be covered up in a certain way later on, and Steve had a really great idea for this. So once we get to the house, I'm gonna have him explain that and show you guys what his idea was. But for now, I'm gonna finish tying these in. I'm gonna work on fitting the knees here, so I'm probably gonna work on doing the first one without filming myself, just so I don't need to be stressed out about it. And then we'll do a little bit more detail on the other side, and I can show you guys what my process is.
So here we are. I got the knee fit as best as I could. It's not perfect, but it looks pretty good. It's definitely a good puzzle for getting back into the swing of things. It was pretty challenging. The biggest issue is that there are so many angles going in so many different ways, and there really aren't that many places to reference off of. So the idea was to get these 2 points and then just move in this direction. The problem with that is that these 2 lines are not parallel. So no matter what direction you move in, it changes everything else at the same time. So you saw I got the pattern with the cardboard made out with what Steve had started with. Put it on there, got it fine-tuned, and then I cut this out on the bandsaw and then fit it and took measurements and started shaving different places to get it close. It worked really well. I think it looks great, and you can't really, I mean, the laminations don't really show up all that well. We actually like the way it looks, so that's gonna be great. So the next step for this one is gonna be to cut out the shape of it, take off all of this outside part, clean it up, and get ready to install it. But before I do that, I'm gonna move over to the other side and kind of show you guys a little bit of how I am doing this. So on this side, we have something a little bit different. So when we put the pattern in, it doesn't really match up. I know I've got this in the way, but even with, you can see that it's a very different shape and it's not gonna work. So instead of trying to reuse this, I think I'm gonna show you guys a completely different way of doing it. And we're gonna make a whole new pattern and just start fresh on this one. And then I can also explain a way to use a joggle stick. All right, so for this, we're gonna get a scrap piece of wood. I'm getting something thin just because it's gonna work best over here. And it doesn't have to be the shape of what you're using, but something close. And then clamp it into place. So, put this over here. And since this is the section that I need to pattern out, I'm going to clamp that down here. That's gonna keep me tight against the edge of the frame here. There we go. So, now we have a flat plane to work with, and we're going to use one of these guys. So this is a joggle stick. So first of all, what I'm going to do is mark the face that I'm using. So over here, I don't know if you can see I made a little mark so I know which side I'm working on. This is gonna be the side that's gonna be facing up. And basically this is just any kind of stick. It can be any shape you want as long as it has some sort of shape to it that you can mark off of. And then it needs a point, and it needs to be long enough to reach the places that you need to mark. And what do I mean by that? We're gonna use this to put it in the points that we wanna mark for the contour of the shape we're trying to cut. So let's move over here and I'll show you a little bit more of what I mean. We're trying to get this shape over here. So I'm gonna start by making marks on here of what I'm doing. So my point is attached to this corner over here, and I'm gonna do this, get the contour, and ideally number those so I know what to connect to what. And then just keep going. Mark more of them. And obviously, the more points you do, the more accurate your pattern will be. So I'm marking the underside here. It doesn't have to be at exactly a certain point, but if this thing has any kind of slope to it or any bow in it, I can get that as well. Mark the corner. More. Okay. Now you can take this over to the bench, put it on some cardboard, and cut it out. That was 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. Now I'm not going to move this right now, but then afterwards what you do is you basically just use any straight edge. I could use this or any kind of ruler, and you just connect your dots. And now the only tricky part here is going to be these over here, which are going to be doing the curve for the frame. And for this, you just do exactly what we've been doing before for springing lines. Just use a batten and spring through your points and mark that. After that, we're going to cut it out, see if it fits. Make it a little bit more manageable. Well, pretty close. It's a little bit off on the shelf up there, but everything else looks really close. So the knees are fit. It is time to drill for the bolts to put them in place. As you can see, I haven't cut this out. One of the reasons is because I still have the laminations down here, the steps, and that makes it so much easier to clamp it in place and to see how I'm gonna drill it. If I were to carve the curve on there, I would have a hard time clamping it, and we would get some marring and stuff like I've already got over here on the old wood. So I'm gonna mark this all out to see where I'm gonna drill, and I'm gonna try to freehand drill these. There's gonna be one bolt through here that goes out to the frame here, and that'll be countersunk so that we can plank over it. There's gonna be one bolt going through the shelf here, which is gonna come out somewhere around here. And then up top here, we're going to drill into the short beam, and that is going to get some big rivets. And then finally, in the very base over here, we're gonna get a screw that tags it in where these two planks already are at, and that should be plenty to hold it in. So let's get ready to mark all this stuff, and I'm gonna work up the courage to drill through this. Yeah. Nice. So thank you all for watching, and some of you might have noticed this shirt that I'm wearing today. This is actually a shirt with the design that Scott was drawing the other day of Arabella's deck structure. You can see it right here. And so we're doing another limited edition t-shirt campaign, which is going to be through Bonfire again. And the way Bonfire works, just to explain it to all you who haven't heard before, is they do a campaign time where they take in orders. So we're going to start ours today, Friday, November 6th. And the ordering is going to go on through 2 weeks. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, they put in that order and they ship everything out to everybody. So this is going to help us out for the next leg of building Arabella. We're going to be working into going into the interior, and that is going to take a lot of kitting out to do. So we're trying to bolster up the funds a little bit as we're running a little low. But as always, thank you all for watching, and thank you all for the support. We are so glad to have all of you along. It is really incredible, the community that we have garnered through this, and we're really, really, really thankful. So thank you very much, and we're glad that you're enjoying the build, and we'll see you next time.